I really understand why spiritual teachers at some point stop talking. It's so strange to be pointing people to where they already are. And to realize, of course, that nobody knows where they are or that they're here. You don't wake up to being somewhere else. The journey isn't into the future. The journey isn't into the unknown even. You can't get there. You can't get to the place you already are. It doesn't make sense. What's the struggle? What's the effort to be where you are right this second? And yet that's the entire teaching. On the other hand, I've lived a long life. And for most of that life, I didn't know I was here. I was always involved in the journey to get there. I was always trying to get to something better, more, something that would complete me. And I really didn't understand that I could find my way to where I was without an enormous amount of effort. Every day I had to work to make myself a better student, a better child, son, brothers, cousin, person, and then husband, father, teacher. There was always some kind of effort involved, because if I didn't make that effort, I had a pretty good sense of what it would look like. You know, people who don't try often end up with the luck of the draw. If you don't try to love your siblings, you know, they may love you back. If you're lucky, they may not. You may have a relationship that lasts a lifetime. You may have a shattered situation. If you don't try in school, chances are you won't be very good. You will have a C life or a B life or a D life or whatever it is you end up with, but it will be a life that has not evolved over and with effort. So this word effort keeps coming up. How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? Most people don't ask, how can I be a worse husband? How can I be a worse father? Although some people move in that direction. Rudy used to talk about effort, and he used to call spiritual practice effort over time. That was the equation. And, you know, I didn't fully get it, except I know I was committed to it. And effort, in Rudy's terms, was meditation and sitting still for a half hour a day. That was the effort. Go to class. And I was committed to that because I had inside a vision of, a sense of, a connection to something much greater that was somehow absent from my daily life and that I wanted to get to, this bigness. I had no idea that that bigness, that vast cosmic, godlike truth of being was somehow right here. In my mind, it was always there. And I had to really work and make an effort to get there. And I really worked hard. I was committed. And I know this is an old story. I practiced sitting 44 years daily, never missed a day. And then I said, it's not working. And I gave up sitting. I stopped trying. And 2 weeks after I stopped trying, something happened. I realized I was there. That the trying of 44 years was an obstructive experience. There was a me trying to get there, and the trying reinforced the me. And so the very thing that was trying to free itself was actually trying in a hidden way to reinforce itself. And it's only when you, in a sense, truly surrender and stop trying that the possibility of realizing the truth occurs. And the truth is, you are now and have always been there, or here. How many times can you say that to people? How many times can someone hear that without getting frustrating? But I don't feel there. I feel like I have a problem. I'm conflicted. I don't make enough effort. I'm not good enough. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. This big I thing swirls around and keeps reinforcing itself and becomes the problem that keeps you having to make a spiritual effort. I try to get rid of me. Cannot be done. The trying to get rid of the me reinforces the me, the separate self. And so it's a crazy circular pattern that goes on and meets with endless frustration. And you'll never feel good enough, you never feel evolved enough, you never feel arrived at it enough. And so you keep going through this thing until maybe, if you're lucky, you go, it's not working. This spiritual path is bullshit. There you go. There's nothing to do. And then the truth comes that if you hadn't been trying to do this, that moment would not arrive. If you hadn't been pushing yourself to the brink of frustration, you would not get to the thing you're looking for. So there is a perfection in the system. And that's one of the things you wake up to, that you cannot know yourself without struggling and making an effort to do so. Just being you, just going to school every day and not trying, doesn't produce anything. Going to school and not making an effort, you will find yourself struggling for most of your life to no end, because the lack of effort produces no result. Rudy used to say, we are here for results. And it's funny, the result you're here for is not the one you think you're looking for. The result that you will be free is wonderful as long as you understand there won't be any you to be free. The you that wants to be free is obstructing the journey. The you that wants to be free is an ego-minded entity that wants to have a graduation certificate that says, I did it. That will never happen. The minute you have a degree that says, I did it, it's a false degree. Because the only degree you have is that there's no one to get a degree. It's always been there. You have always had the thing you're trying to get. You have always had it. But this effort is central and crucial, effort over time. And then there's this thing that happens that Rudy called the effort over the course of a lifetime, that I am starting to learn at this moment in time. 75 years into the journey, and you start to learn things that you can't learn when you're 40 or 30 or 20 or even 60. there are things that start to happen. My friend Bart, who was one of the first awakened people I ever got to know, talked about the awakening as learning that you are not in the driver's seat, you are the passenger. What he did not tell me, and what I have been learning over the course of the last however many years, is that you're sitting in the passenger seat and the wheels are falling off the car. The hood is smashing and flying away. You look over and you discover there's no driver. The car is falling apart. Who are you? There's no passenger and there's no driver. There's just this indescribable reality. Indescribable. Unknowable. There is nobody in charge in the sense of a body or another. And yet there is this phenomenal sense as you are, in a sense, moving without a car, and then after a while, without a body, you start to feel there is a guidance system that is operating all by itself, and that you are its beneficiary. This is beautiful. And then the body that is being guided starts to fall apart. The mind that's getting messages about how to move forward starts to fall apart. That's the phase I am entering. And so as a reporter from the front lines of old age, the beginnings of old age, I need to tell you, this whole journey only goes into greater and greater, if you will, disintegration. The parts that have held together will cease to hold together. The parts that you think you are free of start to announce how powerful they are. Things like breathing, thinking, moving, being embodied, start to fall away. And they don't fall away easily. They announce their departure with something called pain and fear, even built in. It's not something you have to take on. It's right there. And there is, at that point in time, and I'm dealing with friends and people who are really facing these issues, there is this thing that starts to happen where there is nothing but a kind of pain in the moment, at the core of the moment, that you cannot transcend. Loss of everything. Physical suffering. Now clearly I have, I think, miles to go, but the intimations of mortality are powerful, really powerful. And I have been hearing from people who are talking about experiences of such prolonged suffering that their spiritual practice has failed them. Being in the now, being present, being with the what is no longer finding itself in a place of surrender and joy, but insufferable suffering. It tests every part of your spiritual human being. It tests everything. And it is inevitable. It is part of our journey. We move into something, even if it's 14 seconds long, you know, if the bridge comes falling down on your car, you know, even if it's something like that, there is a moment of absolute horrifying terror and unknowing and pain and difficulty that all of your spiritual practice will not prepare you for. And if your whole journey is to make yourself ready for that moment, prepare to have to do the hardest thing ever, which is surrender totally to the insufferable truth of suffering. Now, why have you had a whole life of spiritual practice? Why have you given yourself over to trying to free yourself of all of your duality, your bodily sensations, your fears, your hopes, your ambitions? Why have you been trying to let go of all of this stuff, if not to be able at that moment to let go? And in most cases, it's a very challenging reality. Next week on Easter, we celebrate Christ's arriving at that journey, at that moment. I talk about this a lot, so again, forgive my endless repetition. But hanging on the cross, he was abandoned by his spiritual life. Why have you forsaken me? Nisargadatta, one of the great teachers who wrote the book I Am That, in the final stages of throat cancer from years of smoking, even while he was practicing and sitting as a great sainted teacher, was not happy. Why was I born? He was saying. I don't want to be negative. What I'm trying to get at is something phenomenal happened with Christ on the cross, which I've talked about maybe every Easter for the last several years. In the midst of this phenomenal suffering, he says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." He is talking to others. He is talking to us, to our own self. Forgive us, for we know not what we do. There is this moment of essential, profound compassion. And I have come to believe that the whole spiritual journey is to that, is simply to compassion for yourself and for others. That's the journey. It's not to become elevated in your wisdom and knowledge and your freedom and your awakenedness. It's not to become celebrated. It's not to find a way to support yourself by teaching people about how great you are. It is simply to understand that the human condition is your condition, and to have profound empathy, which is compassion for the whole experience of being. Once that starts to happen, you will experience this thing that I talk about a lot, called gratitude and wonder. You will not come with knowledge. You will not come with knowing what any of this is about particularly. You will just know that you are a witness to something that is infinitely vast, that is billions of years or infinite time and eternal in its creation, however you want to look at that. But it has manifested this, and it has manifested you. And this is its extraordinary truth. And you are a witness to that truth. That's the spiritual journey. I, for one, am grateful that I sat for 44 years and made an effort, because that effort has brought me into something so ultimately simple and beautiful and real and appreciated that I might never have awakened to. My awakening was not into how great I am and how one I am with the universe. It's how extraordinarily lucky and beautiful it is to be. It will have its difficult moments. And the people I know who have entered those moments have, in most part, come through to another level of compassion. Their suffering has led them to appreciate other people's journeys. And then what you start to experience is other people's journeys are your journey, that we share this singular journey, that we are this one alive being that is sharing itself with one another. And one of the things that starts to happen when you have that realization is you look at everybody else in this cliched statement, but as yourself. You look at everyone as yourself. Not yourself in the abstract, but the absolute truth of it. If you want to see God, look in the eyes of the person you're sitting with. And then, if you're able to see God, treat yourself the way you would like to be treated. At the ripe old age of 75, I have begun to experience something that I can probably best call non-resistance. Stop resisting anything. Or as I once understood years ago, if it's in front of you, it's yours. If it's in front of you, it's yours. If the paper falls to the floor, pick it up. If there's something to be done, do it now. If there's a person in front of you, open your heart. If there is an assignment that must be done in your life, do it at this point. Don't make a list of things to do later, do them as they happen. And what I've discovered for me at this point is an extraordinary flow of movement into the thing that has to be done. You know, the dishwasher has to be emptied. The garbage has to go out. There's a flow of life that is, demanding, that is mundane on every level, and yet there is a holiness in doing the thing that's there, or that's here, the thing that's here now. And there is an economy of movement that starts to occur because you start to do it with no resistance, which means that life is just happening, and you start to realize what it's like to just flow absolutely with the moment as it unfolds. It is incredible to watch. It's incredible to watch how you know how to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush and brush your teeth. You don't have to think about it for a second. You just do it. It's so beautiful to see how you get dressed in the morning. It's so beautiful standing in the shower and the familiarity of that and knowing the body knows what to do. You don't have to do anything. You just let it be. And the simplicity of it is extraordinary. But when something comes, like you're working at the counter and something falls on the floor, the part of you that goes, oh shit, and wants to bend down to get it, falls away, and you go, aha. And you realize the body has been asked to bend down to the floor and pick it up, and you put it back. And you stop getting angry at life. You start flowing with life. That is sort of what I have been arriving at in recent time. And the clarity of it, and the brilliance of it, and the simplicity of it is exquisite. It also is wonderful in terms of relationship. If you're relating to somebody and you have an opportunity to be really surrendered and open and non-resistant, the relationship has a way of flowing that is better than anything you imagined. And then if you marry someone who is doing the same thing, I cannot tell you the gift of that. If you find someone in your life who is willing to be available to non-resistance, and you can find your way in life, you are doing the dance with God. That's how it works. I don't know if it gets better than that. I don't know where any of this goes, really. I wake up in the morning on class day and I keep saying, why am I doing this? What I have so little left to say, and yet this refining of the message seems to be meaningful. And I can only tell you I am arriving at, and I discover as I teach, these simple truths. And the basic truth is, stop fighting, stop trying, don't resist, be open, and do the thing that's there. And you will come across this guidance system that will basically tell you what to do. And it will tell you what to do with such clarity and specificity that you will find yourself being moved by, carried by, uplifted by, embraced by the very truth of your own nature. That's what we're getting. That's what we're here for. I really wish it upon you. I want each of you to find this thing, live this thing, and to have what I'm talking about. And to understand that for 44 years, I made an effort. I sat, I tried, I reached, I worked hard, I wrote movies, I raised the kids. I participated in raising the kids because I could never have done it by myself. You know, there was a dance between my children and my wife and I that was unbelievably joyful and difficult and effortful, but real. I say this because there are so many people who want to have an awakening that frees them from effort and frees them from everything, and they can just sit back and let themselves be. Great. Good luck. I wish it upon all of you, but I don't think in the end awakening gets you out of effort. I think it makes your effort noble. I think you understand that your effort is God at work. So I think in recent times I have found that people listening to these talks are dwindling in numbers. And I think the dwindling has to do with the fact that I keep talking about effort. And people don't want to hear that. And I totally get it. Who wants to sit for 50 years? Who wants to do that? Well, good luck. You know, there may be ways to, in self-inquiry, wake up to what I'm talking about. There may be ways of divorcing yourself from the world and just doing nothing but going in and sitting deeply. All of that's fine, I guess. But the path that I was given, the path Rudy taught me, was your daily life is your spiritual life. Live it consciously. Live it well. Open to the possibility of your own being, and this unfolding will take place, and you will arrive at this very moment, and you will be deeply grateful to do that. That's the journey to this moment. Good luck. Any concerns, thoughts, ideas, additions? You know, I can do this talk week after week after week, and I do this talk week after week, and that may be why nobody wants to hear it anymore. But it does require a response. It requires a response, and that response is show up. Show up. The effort to show up is everything. The effort to want this is everything. The effort to ask for help, the effort to reach out is everything. And if you think there's another way to do it and it works for you, God bless. But I do know sitting with each of you and being present with you is as beautiful as it gets. So thank you.